Welcome to episode 61 of How About the Huskies. As always, I'm your host, Connor, joined by Matt. Unfortunately, Andrew can't be here this morning. He's off doing his own adventure. I'm not even getting into it. I'm not even sure where he is but he can't be here. So it's just going to be a two-man show. It's going to be a quick show. I feel like there's not much to talk about. I mean, we'll talk about the win against Butler now 3 days ago. It's kind of old news, I feel like. So we won't talk too long about that. We will obviously play Georgetown tomorrow. That's not a game that really needs too much to say either, but we're a Huskies podcast, middle of the season, middle of Big East play. We got to provide some content for you guys. We're gonna start off with that Butler game. I mean, that Butler game, the way it went, it was kind of how I expected our game against Xavier at home to go. Kind of like it would stay within that 9 to 12 range. They would never really go away. That's Butler's a tough team. They're a team I personally don't want to see in a Big East tournament or even an NCAA tournament. They got some guys that could really beat you. DJ Davis had a big game. Telfort, like they just got guys. I mean, how'd you feel, Matt, about that game watching it?
Yeah, the game was a little ugly, not quite as ugly as the Providence disaster from last week, but overall, I mean, we didn't really get to play how we wanted to play. We had a bunch of production from a bunch of different places. Diarra with 9 off the bench, pretty productive. Spencer leading scorer with 20. We only made 6 3-pointers in a game where we scored 71 points. So I think that kind of goes to show you, how we got our buckets. 11 from the stripe. They were coming from all over the place. Another pretty ugly game. Klingon, sort of able to stay out of foul trouble-ish, putting up 18-14, probably one of his biggest games of the season. But overall, a good win, a game that you needed to win, and they took care of business.
Yeah, if you guys remember from previous episode, our players to watch, I said Donovan Clingan. I did the thing. Here's 5 words. Donovan Clingan played 20 minutes because he had really been in foul trouble the last few. He only had one foul against Butler. He played 28 minutes. He had 18 and 14. That's his first double-double of the year, if you can believe it or not. Obviously, he missed some time, but still, he's played in how many games now? Look right here. I have it. His 18th game. It's his first double-double. I feel like a guy that is projected to do so well. You expect him to get at least a couple of those by now, but he's not really not a bad thing, but he's not really the rebounder that you'd expect a 7-2 guy to be, but he impacts the game in so many other ways. But he had his best game of the season, one of the better games of his career against Butler. He took a three, he didn't hit it. I mean, why not at this point? I'm fine with him taking one a game, even if he doesn't make it. It's just it's the entertainment to see. He's not a guy you expect out there, but yeah, he had a great game. You mentioned Cam Spencer led but 20. I mean, this I feel like is a big game for us. It shows we don't need everyone to go off to win because you mentioned Newton. He only had 9 points and he had a lot of clutch buckets late, but he wasn't really impactful in the first half. He went down. He suffered what looked like a scary injury when he limped off, but he was fine. He came back in. I mean, Castle, he had career games back to back going into this one. He just had 5 points, but he had 2 blocks. He had his fingerprints all over it as well. And Caravan, he was back after missing St. John's. He played 35 minutes, just 7 points, but 3 steals. So all these guys aren't doing the scoring, but they're still producing in other ways. And you mentioned Diarra, 9 points off the bench. Samson Johnson had 3 points. I mean, this wasn't an A game for sure. I'd say this is a B minus. I feel like that's a fair grade. I mean, Butler's a tough team, but it shows we can win sloppy games. We've shown that twice now in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, like you're saying, we got to win sloppy games. You got to be able to win ugly. If you want to, repeat as national champions, you need to be able to win games where you're hitting 6 threes, where you're allowing 37% from the field. You're hitting 47. I'm surprised you only won by 9, but I mean that just shows Butler, the kind of team that they are, but also, where we need to improve.
Yeah, where we need to improve, I feel like it starts with developing the bench a little bit more. I mean, obviously, at this point, we're probably not going to see too much out of Ball and Stewart, even though they played 5 and 3 minutes respectively. We're not going to see them suddenly jump up to 15 minutes per game. It's just not how Hurley operates. Neither of them played in the second half, if I'm not mistaken. They just went 7-man rotation in the second half. But it's going to be tough. Cam Spencer, 38 minutes. Castle, 33. I mean, let me pull up his stats over the past few. He's played a lot of minutes. Let's pull up the game log here. 39, 39, and 38 in his last 3 games. I mean, obviously, he's shown and proven he can do that, and he's producing still. He had 15, 23, and 20. So it's not like he's out there getting fatigued and it's forcing him to miss shots. It's just, I don't know if it's sustainable to have a guy like that play nearly the entire time. That worries me, especially if we get into March when you got like 2 games in 3 days in the first or second round or Sweet 16 Elite Eight, stuff like that. It's just you're gonna need those bench guys to provide some solid minutes. I know they can. I still want to see a little bit more though.
And I'm surprised with the lack of foul trouble that Klingon only got out there for 28 minutes. I mean, Spencer, I feel like he loves being out there, but, as a coach, you do kind of have to understand that the schedule is going to get packed come March, and you need your guys out there. You need them available. And I feel like playing your guys, an entire game isn't a great way to keep them available. But I mean, I guess at this point of the season where you need to win these games, I guess it's necessary.
Yeah, and I guess I'm just nitpicking, but I'm fine with him doing that if he and Hurley obviously are fine with it. I'm not going to question them. They know better than me. I'm just here talking to you guys about the team. I'm not anywhere close related with the team, but I don't know. It's just in some games like that St. John's game where you don't have Caravan, it's more understandable to see him play 39 minutes. But in this one where you have everyone healthy, it's just seemed like a lot for me. I think we can just move on here unless you got anything else from this Butler game. Like we said, it was just one of those games that happened. It's a ugly win, but a win's a win. We've won what 10 games in a row, 11. I believe it's up to 11 now. Yeah, 11 consecutive wins. It's just we're making the Big East look too easy. I don't want us to get ahead of ourselves here, but it's not every day you win 11 straight conference games. So this team's really good. And that kind of brings me into the next segment here. This team is really good. Where odds are I saw it's like a 92% chance or whatever for us to be the 1 seed going into the Big East tournament. I feel like the Big East Player of the Year is up for grabs, and I feel like you kind of have to give it to one of our guys. There's a bunch of great candidates on other teams like Devin Carter of Providence. You got Kolek, he's always a threat at Marquette. Creighton's got some guys like Baylor Shireman, Trey Alexander, but we don't have any guys that really are in the top five in scoring in the conference because we are so balanced. It's just who do you give it to? I mean, who would you choose, Matt, if you had to choose one guy on our roster right now to be Big East Player of the Year?
It might come as a bit of a surprise. It might not, but in my honest opinion, our player of the year has been Cam Spencer. I mean, obviously you have guys, Tristan Newton, Steph Castle, Donovan Clingan, Alex Caravan, all huge impact players. But just throughout the year, I feel like our most important player has definitely been Cam Spencer. Just the way he's been available for us, the way that he shows up in these huge games, he rarely disappears. He has his off shooting nights, but who doesn't? I feel like Cam Spencer, he's averaging 15 points a game, 4.5 rebounds. I feel like to me, he's sort of the obvious choice. I mean, Newton puts up all the numbers. Newton's your star guy, but at the same time, he has nights like against Butler where he's not really there, 3 for 11, 1 for 3. So, I mean, in my honest opinion, I feel like Cam Spencer is the guy, but if it's not from us, I feel like it has to be Devin Carter, just the improvements that he's made this year, keeping Providence somewhat relevant. I mean, next year is going to be tough without him for them. Or Trey Alexander from Creighton. He's just been insane all year.
I actually agree with you. I feel like I'd give it to Cam. I mean, you mentioned Tristan's the stat guy. I feel like you see all these like predictions for first team All American. Tristan's on that. Obviously, Cam isn't, but I feel like Cam just impacts, like you said, he impacts the game for us. He's our most impactful shooter. He's our most important scorer. Defensively, he's a lot better than we expected him to be. He crashes the glass. He gets his fair share of boards. You can get assists. He's just the perfect UConn Husky. And I didn't expect when he committed here, even back in November when the season started, to be saying Cam Spencer should be Big East Player of the Year. But I feel like there's certainly that argument out there now. I agree with you. If it's not a Husky, it should be Devin Carter. Even though Providence is they're 6-6 in league play, they're right in the middle of the pack. Like there's a bunch of teams around 500. It's just the stats he's putting up are ridiculous. He's had to step it up with Bryce Hopkins out, and he certainly has. He's averaging 19 points, 8 rebounds, 3.5 assists. He's averaging almost 2 steals. He's had big games as well. He did solid against us. I don't remember his stat line exactly, but I just feel like we're gonna split votes with the Huskies. Like kind of last year with the Freshman of the Year award, it was pretty much Whitmore, Caravan, or Klingon. Whitmore won the award. It probably should have been Caravan, but some voters probably were like, "There's two Huskies here. I'm not sure who to pick. I'll just pick the Nova guy," which Whitmore probably did ended up deserving it. He had a good year, but I don't know. I feel like we're gonna split votes, and it's not gonna go in our favor. But we should definitely have the Big East Player of the Year on our roster.
And obviously, I feel like it's kind of the same thing last year that, Marquette had with Kolek. But I mean, this year, I know I wouldn't be surprised to see Newton win it. Be it he's the numbers guy, he's the fifth year reigning national champion, making all the awards lists. But I would love to see Cam Spencer win it just to show his impact that he's had on the team this year. I really feel like he deserves it, especially playing 38 minutes tonight.
This is something that wouldn't happen because I'm pretty sure the way I assume it's just a vote with all the coaches and stuff, and it's just whoever has the most votes wins. But why not just give Spencer and Newton Cole Big East Player of the Year? I mean, there's been years. I'm looking specifically 2020/21. That was Book Knight's year where he was banged up. He was his last year with us. There were three Big East Player of the Years. I mean, Colin Gillespie, Mamukelashvili from Seton Hall, and Jeremiah Robinson Earl. I'm pretty sure that was just because there was a three-way tie in the voting. And if there's a tie in the voting, I feel like it's not going to be between Spencer and Newton, especially with Carter's presence and Kolek's presence. But if you're not sure which Husky to give it to, just give it to both of them. I mean, we've seen co-players the years before. I mean, I don't know. We're kind of this doesn't matter at the end of the day. I mean, we know we have even if like Carter wins, we know I'd rather have Cam Spencer or Tristan Newton, even though he's a good player, he plays hard. I'd rather have who we got now, but it's just something to think about, especially when there's not much to talk about in this episode. I mean, Butler and Georgetown, it's not exactly too exciting, but we'll move on to Georgetown. Obviously, our second game this year against the Hoyas. This time we're going down to DC to face Ed Cooley's bunch. It's a noon tip. I believe it's on FS1 or Fox. It's on one of the two. I don't know, but these guys played us kind of tight the first time, tighter than they should have. I mean, let me pull up the it was a 13-point game, I believe. Yeah, 80-67 final. We never really ran away with it like we know we can and are capable of. And I'm not saying we're going to lose this game because we're not, unless we do. But I feel like we always play Georgetown tight every time we play them. There's no exceptions, it seems like, in the past like 3 years. So I expect us to maybe be in that 13-15 range again, but we should certainly pull it out.
And if you remember last game, Supreme Cook absolutely ran all over us, had a field day. But we did not have Donovan Clingan. So I'm excited to see Clingan come back and have that matchup with Cook. Caravan also went off 26 points, 5 rebounds. We had a lot of big games from guys, but that means that you're gonna have smaller games from other guys. Samson Johnson wasn't around, Newton wasn't really around. This was the Cam Spencer and Alex Caravan show. And Steph Castle put okay too, only 2 for 7, but 14 points, 9 made free throws. You love to see him get into the line. So, I'm excited to see Clingan come back, have that matchup with Supreme Cook.
Yeah, I remember from that game. Supreme Cook's not a guy that should get anywhere close to 18 and 13 on you. Obviously, Klingen's a lot better than Sampson, but even he's kind of similar to Sampson, I feel like, maybe a little better. But you can't allow that. That's one of the main reasons the game was close last time. But Klingen should fairly easily be able to handle him down low. And yeah, like you mentioned, there was the Caravan and Spencer show. They combined to hit 11 of 15 threes. I mean, if we have that, we're certainly going to win. Even if a guy like you mentioned Newton struggled in that game, he went 0 for 6 from three. He's kind of had more duds than we realized. That was another 9-point performance. He had 9 against Butler. I feel like he's due. This is maybe foreshadowing a little bit into the players to watch segment, but I feel like we need to see a big game out of him. He's due for one, but I feel like the keys to the game is to contain Supreme Cook down low and just limit their 3-pointers. They went 4 for 16 last time. I mean, they'll probably do a little better than that, I assume, this time around. You just got to really limit that. They got guys that really like it. Jaden Epps, he didn't make one, but he went 0 for 5 from 3 last time. Dontrez Styles is a guy that could make a couple in a row and get hot. He only went 1 for 2 against us, but just limit the 3 and limit Cook down low, and this should easily be a victory.
Feel like when we play against Georgetown, we're kind of playing against ourselves because you don't want to allow these guys to go off. Our defense last time did very good. Like you mentioned, Jaden Epps 0 for 5 from 3. He had 16, but he shot 5 of 19 from the field. I mean, Dontrez Styles, another one of their leading scorers, 2 for 7, 11 points. Their guys weren't very effective. So I feel like, especially with Klingen back this time and these updated defensive numbers. I feel like we should be able to handle them a little bit easier than 13 points, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a similar scoreline.
Yeah, I think that we'll just jump into players to watch here. There's not much more to say. And like I was talking, I'm gonna go Tristan Newton. We just talked about him. He probably could potentially be Big East Player of the Year. Big East Player of the Year doesn't have 9 against Georgetown, 9 against Butler. They take these games and they pop off to get 20 plus. So that's my prediction. That's my hope for Tristan Newton. I want to see 20 points. I know he's certainly capable of it. You've seen him go off at times this year, especially on the road. Remember at Villanova, at Kansas. Those are two much tougher games than Georgetown. So I don't want to say 25, even though it wouldn't surprise me. I'll say 20 plus with Tristan Newton. That's my goal for him.
I'm gonna take the other guy that I got going for Big East Player of the Year, Cam Spencer. 33 minutes last time out, 20 points. So I think that if he can put up another 20 plus point game performance, then things are gonna start getting really interesting in this discussion because of just how consistently he does it. We're pushing towards the end of the year now. We're almost at that stretch where we have six, elite opponents. So I want to see Cam Spencer kind of go into this stretch here on fire. That way, when we actually reach that streak of games, everything comes together for him.
Yeah, Georgetown, they're on a 7-game losing streak right now. Obviously, we've won 11 in a row. I don't want the team to take these next 2 games at Georgetown and at DePaul for granted. They're still road games in the Big East. I mean, these teams are due at some point, right? I mean, just it's kind of like roulette. You don't want to be the team to lose to Georgetown or DePaul, especially being 21-2 and in first place. But I don't think we will. But you just can't. Obviously, in a week, 8 days from now, we play Marquette at home. It should be a top 5 matchup. I just don't want the team, and I don't think they will. I don't want them to just look ahead to that matchup and just overlook these 2 games because there's still teams that could stick with you. We saw against Butler, they're going to stick with you the whole time. I feel like Georgetown always sticks with us. DePaul, not as much, but it's on the road, so you never know. But all in all, just take it 1 game at a time like they've been doing, and they should be fine. I think, unless you got anything else, I'll do it here. Episode 61, the 2-man show. Andrew's off doing his own thing, but we got to continue producing the content. Husky schedule doesn't stop if one of us can't make it. So we'll probably do another episode between Georgetown and DePaul. It may not be an exciting episode because it's between Georgetown and DePaul, which should be 2 pretty easy wins. But like I said, we got to keep on producing. So look for an episode then. Thanks for watching now. And yeah, thanks.